the quote is when Benjamin Franklin quipped that there are two certainties in life: death and taxes. You guys know it. But yet I would also say that there is another. It is suffering. Not something we want to think about, dwell on too much in our life, but yet we know it's a reality. We look around at the world and we see the news and we see it. Probably today, in many ways, we're as keenly aware of it as we've ever been, at least recently. And we can see the suffering going on in other parts of the world immediately as it comes to us through the TV. We can, in an instant, see the aftermath of a hurricane or immediately to us. Families can experience suffering when their loved ones lose suddenly, when there's broken relationships within a family. We feel suffering in our bodies from age, and we can see we are injured or diseased. Suffering will touch in certain ways in our life. And it's that idea of suffering a stumbling block for many people regarding our voices like Bertrand Russell and Steve use the existence and the reality of suffering and pain in the on our Christian faith. And that we have, i.e. Job. Knowing where the season leads to the foot of the cross, and God entering our suffering, to bear our suffering and bring. Now, why do we have to deal with the reality of suffering? Created the suffering. And then it entered into this world when our first parents rebelled against God in His perfect creation, in His perfect garden, and so suffering was introduced. Genesis 3 describes it as a consequence of Adam's sin. Now he was going to have to work and toil because he would have to deal with the thorns and the weeds that the land would produce as punishment for sin. We live in this world in which Satan is always at work, attacking us. And so we feel that burden each day, each week. But ultimately, the problem is not pain and suffering. They're just the symptoms of the deeper problem, and the deeper problem is sin, and the results of that sin is painful. In a book entitled Migrants, Sharecroppers, and Mountaineers, a poverty-stricken mother shares a story about her husband one time who was in church. And he lost his temper with the preacher because he was preaching about suffering in the church service. She wrote this: "Then my husband did the worst thing he could do. He took the baby, Annie, and he held her right before his face, the ministers, and he screamed and hollered at him. He told him that here was our little Annie, and she's never been to the doctor, and the child is sick, and we've no money, not for Annie, not for ourselves, not for others." And then he told the reverend he was like all the rest, making money off of us. He held our Annie as high as he could, right at the cross, and told God he'd better stop having these ministers speaking for him, that he should come and see us himself. Imagine myself as a preacher, I don't know what I'd do. Something like that. But yet here was this father that summed up the dilemma of suffering that so many of us can experience, that it comes with those questions of why. Why this person? Why this child? Why these people in Ukraine?